day. Welcome to Porchlight Letters podcast what number are we up to? 2389. What does an address change reveal? What does a change in address reveal? Movement always tells a story. So relocation signals opportunity or hardship. A change in address is really random. People move because something in their life has shifted. A relocation might reflect a new job, better housing, access to opportunity. It can also signal loss, such as unemployment, illness, or financial strain, a loss of a family member who may have changed the economical climate in the house. For example, a family moving from a rural village to an industrial town may be seeking steady work, while a move to smaller housing might indicate economic pressure. When you see a move in the records, it is helpful to ask what changed just before it happened. Repeated movement suggests instability. Frequent address changes within a short period often point to uncertainty. Families who moved every year or two may have been following seasonal work. That's a good one. Struggling to maintain stable employment or facing rising rents. For instance, a labourer moving repeatedly within the same city may have been taking whatever work was available, while a family shifting between relatives' homes may have been coping with financial difficulty. Repetition often reveals patterns or stress or adaptation. And there is another one that comes into that, under that category too. Some people were escaping debtors. It was easier for them to flee than pay. If they owed somebody money, a lot of people moved completely out of the area. There were people in there's still people today that even do this, even with the technology we have today. But back then we didn't have the technology. They didn't have the technology we have today to make it easier for debtors and creditors to keep track of people. In those days, it was sort of like some people would just abandon everything and leave in the middle of the night just to avoid the the creditors calling to collect on debts. So they would get up and flee, and they would flee to like the next town or a town further on beyond that. Somewhere where they weren't known, and then they could start afresh. Then, of course, the cycle would repeat itself, and then they'd be off again. So that could happen as well. And yes, you will catch up with those stories in some newspapers and things as well. Neighborhood choice reflects identity. Where people choose to live often reflects who they are and what they value. Families frequently settle near others who share language, culture, religion, or occupation. Immigrant communities often form neighborhood clusters that provide support and familiarity. For example, several people from the same homeland appearing on the same street or district might signal chain migration, where earlier settlers helped later arrivals establish themselves. Neighborhoods are social as well as physical spaces. And neighborhoods were very supportive in the community, very supportive of each other as well. Migration shows ambition or necessity. Long distance moves usually signal significant change. Migration across regions or countries may reflect opportunity, such as access to land, employment, or education. It can also reflect necessity, such as conflict, famine, or economic collapse. For example, a family leaving a crowded city for farmland may be seeking independence, while a move across borders during political unrest may be driven by survival. Migration often marks turning points in family history. And amongst all of that as well, they've got a conflict war, so that's in there already. Addresses map social networks. Addresses do more than locate people geographically. They reveal who lived nearby, who provided support, and how families stay connected. Census reports are great at these. You can see these clusters of people. Repeated proximity to the same neighbors, relatives, or workplaces can often reveal long-term relationships. For instance, siblings living on the same street or extended family members residing in adjacent buildings often shared resources and responsibilities. They also shared houses as well, which is why on some census reports, you might have the head of the house, and the relationship to the head of the house would be his wife, his children, and then there may be siblings or in-laws or parents or nieces and nephews, grandchildren coming and staying with them as well. Mapping addresses over time helps uncover networks of care, cooperation, and community. This all matters because movement charts the rhythm of a family's life. It reveals change, adaptation, connection, and survival in ways that single records cannot. Another reason for migration, and this is one that that was with my ancestors, is back in the mid to late, more the late 1800s, is England would sponsor people, would subsidize the fear of people who wanted to, they were wanting people to migrate to New Zealand to build up the country and all that, because New Zealand is a very young country. We signed the Treaty of Waitangi on February the 6th, 1840. After that, only from England started coming in. And so to help populate this new country and get it up and going, the British government turned around and said to people, we need people to go to New Zealand to help colonize it. We will help subsidize your cruise fare down there, your fare down there. And you can actually go to the shipping logs and you can see how much that family paid themselves and how much the government paid for them to go. So there was incentives for people to move down there to help colonize a new country. You know, we need teachers down there, we need doctors down there, we need to build up this country and populate it. So they offered for people to come down to New Zealand and basically help pay their way. So you got to look at those sorts of things as well. Why did they go from England down to New Zealand? This is why, because they were helped subsidized. But there was a call put out for people to go and colonize New Zealand, and this is what the government did to help incentivize them to go. Then Australia had two different ways of populating. There were the convicts that were sent to Australia after they'd been found guilty or whatever, rather than putting them in overcrowded jails. They sent them down to Australia, where they were down there where they were put to work on clearing lands and things. Then there were those that went down there to live and help colonize the country as well. So so Australians were either convicts or they volunteered to go down there, and that sort of thing. So look at the time that they went, what was going on at that time. Were they being incentivized to go by the government? Did they decide to go and test out the greener pastures? There were also people going, like a lot of Irish people went across to America to escape the famine that was going on. They thought they could do better in America, so they came over here, which is why you have a strong Irish American community up around New York and into Philadelphia as well. There's a lot of reasons. So look to see where these people settled. What was their community like? Could it be that they were incentivized by something in their country, be it political conflict, religious persecution, subsidy by the government to go and help colonize? You know, there's all these different reasons and things that people move from one country to another. You know, land of opportunities and things like that. You know, let's go get a fresh start down there. So check on those things. What was going on at the time in order for them to move? So it's very interesting finding immigrant stories as well and having a look at those. Your practical takeaway for today is track addresses as carefully as you do the names. You're tracking the names, now track them. How do you track addresses? Census reports, directories, electoral rolls. Look at shipping manifests. If you knew they went from one country to another, do you know the name of the ship that they went on? Where did they live? Because a lot of the manifests will say where they came from in England. Those ones I know. Where they came from in England before they set sail down to New Zealand. So you can find those on the shipping manifests. But track the addresses as carefully as you do the names. If you want help mapping your family movements, send us a private message and let's set up a free, no obligation 30-minute discovery call to help get you on the path of helping you track your family movements. And your closing thought for today: every address is a chapter in a story. And with that, we are out of here. Go out, have a super fantastic, sparkling evening. We'll catch you guys back here tomorrow evening at 6.